We have pretty mild winters here. Saying that, we did get quite a few frosty mornings, snow even on a couple of occasions. And through it all, herbs, especially the culinary herbs, have stood steadfast. And as with this sage here in front of me, they're already starting to put on green growth, fresh new leaves, long before a lot of our annual vegetables have even started sprouting. So there's something that we can count on now in early spring in this hungry gap. Most of my beds are devoid of most crops, but you'll see scattered throughout little bits of green. And in most cases, these will be herbs or the alliums that have also persevered through winter. Today, we're going to take stock of all of the herbs, the culinary herbs that I have growing here in the garden and that are starting to put on some new growth. And I'm going to be harvesting quite a few of them because I'm going to be making an early Easter feast using 2 Waitrose recipes. And I'm going to show you how to make one of them step by step. The braised lamb with mint, parsley, and almond pesto. I'm starting off with this sage here. I was growing this in a container originally and then planted it out last summer. It didn't look like it was doing too well, but look at how big it got. And at times it was covered in snow this winter. And indeed, some of the leaves are a little bit worse for wear, but a lot of them are starting to sprout new growth, new velvety leaves. Sage is really hardy. It can get quite large, as you can see here. It can also have a tendency to get a bit woody at times, depending on the soil that it's growing in. But overall, this is a really dependable culinary herb in my garden, and it seems to be very happy here at the end of this bed. I need some sage to make the side dish, which is a butternut squash recipe, but it has sage in the filling and also some crispy sage for the topping. Now this is the 4th sprig I think that I have picked, and I think that will be enough because sage has such a strong flavor. A little bit goes a long way. Just back here behind the sage, I have a few different herbs growing in this bed. Now, these little clumps here that look like grass, these are chives, and I divided a plant, I think it was in September, October, and I planted one of them inside the polycrub and the other 2 here. And you can see they are growing, looking lush and green, beautiful. They'll get absolutely massive, so I will transplant them into other places in the garden. The elder that I planted, you can see it's growing, but back behind here, this is a type of perennial celery. It's not lovage, which I also have. And this is one that I got from a friend. I'm really curious to see how it grows. But again, you can use it like lovage or celery. Now over here, these are a few rosemaries that are propagated from cuttings. These 3 are doing really good. I think that the onions behind them help to shelter them. This one down here isn't doing too well. You can see behind it, it's a little bit dead. Rosemary isn't as hardy as other types of herbs. And if it gets below freezing, it can have a tendency to go dead or half dead like this. But I'm pleased that these 3 over here have seen themselves through the winter. I need quite a bit of parsley to make this pesto. And I grow both parsleys, flat leaf and curly leaf. This is curly leaf here in the corner. And notice that pretty much everything else has died off in this upper part of this bed. There's a Korean mint here, it's a little bit lackluster. The other one has completely perished. Parsley is hardy. The biggest mistake that people make with growing parsley is that they don't give it enough space. And it's an easy mistake to make because when you go to the supermarket and you buy those pots of parsley, they have literally dozens of individual plants in there, and they're just planted up to give that illusion of being really bountiful, but all of those plants are really stressed out. In reality, you should grow them individually and plant them so that one little plant is given at least a couple of feet in diameter to grow, and they can grow massively. And one plant can give you enough parsley for the entire year. Choosing locally sourced meat is really important to me because it supports local farmers, it reduces food miles, and it helps to strengthen the local economy. By purchasing meat from local farms or Waitrose, the sponsor of this video, you can also ensure that the animals were raised in the best way possible. All of Waitrose's own label fresh and frozen lamb is from British farmers who share their commitment to high welfare standards and quality. For Easter, Waitrose is offering 25% off roasts and a £10 offer on fine wines from Wednesday the 29th of March to Tuesday the 11th of April. Also available now are delicious Easter treats and deals including chocolate Easter eggs and luxury hot cross buns. We absolutely love the Heston from Waitrose extraordinary chocolate hen's eggs. They're filled with a banoffee and chocolate filling. There's a few herbs that I have overwintered here in the Polycrub, so let's go have a look at them. Hey Mackie, you want to come in? Do you want to come in? We're a good couple of months from me planting this out with summer crops. And there's everything in here from spring cabbage to lettuces, rocket that is a bit overgrown, some Asian greens that are a bit overgrown, but I also have some herbs in here, some of them in pots, which I've overwintered. Down here we've got some parsley. So this is a little bit bigger than the parsley that's outside, a bit more lush and tender actually, now that I feel it. Comet is trying to figure out where the catnip is. Now again, it is a type of herb we can use in teas, but cats obviously love it, and that's why I mainly grow it. It's over here, and I'm not going to point it out too much because I don't want Comet running over here and smashing it. Back here in this bed, I have a bay, and some of the leaves are a bit nibbled, but it looks pretty healthy. I need to have 6 bay leaves for the recipe later on. Next to it here, this is Korean mint. It's not a true mint, but it has kind of a minty, anise, almost coriander, but without the soapy taste that people also associate with coriander. So I do use it as a coriander replacement, although it has much more of its own unique flavor. And look at how lush it is in here. When you overwinter things in a greenhouse or a polytunnel, they can do so much better. This is another Korean mint here. There's a mixture of different greens in this bed. Some lush looking lettuces, Welsh onions here. Also some more Asian greens that are starting to flower. You can eat these as edible flowers. And then you remember the chives outside. This is from that same clump that I divided, but look at how big it is in comparison. On the other side, I have quite a few different plants in pots, geraniums. This is a miniature raspberry, but I also have another bay back here, and I have mints. I need quite a bit of peppermint or garden mint for the pesto that I'm making, and it's a good thing that I brought these pots inside the Polycrub, because if I had left them outside, and also if you're growing mint outside, you'll probably not notice any real growth on them for another couple of weeks at least. It's just a little bit too cold. But because they're here inside the Polycrub, it's much warmer, it's sheltered, and there are plenty of leaves coming out. Now, I have quite a few different mints here. This is spearmint here in the front, peppermint, garden mint that I grew on from a pot that I got from the supermarket. These two are both apple mint. This one here in the back, this one is chocolate mint. This one's a little bit further behind, but this one is one of my favorite mints. This is ginger mint. The other favorite is outside strawberry mint. It's by the New Pond. Growing mint in pots has a couple of really big bonuses. First of all, it constrains them and stops them from taking over parts of your garden, and they will happily do that. The other thing is that you can keep different specimens separated. These are all different types of peppermint, but if they were grown in the ground next to one another, they would hybridize, they would cross-pollinate, and then you can lose those unique aspects of these different types of mints. But growing them in pots means that when they do start flowering, you can separate them a bit and discourage that from happening, and also just propagate them by using the roots rather than allowing the seeds to set in the ground around the original plants. Right, we need quite a bit of peppermint and garden mint for the pesto, so I'm going to get cutting. Thank goodness I did bring these into the Polycrub, because otherwise I'd have no mint for my pesto this time of the year. I'm making braised leg of lamb with mint, parsley, and almond pesto. The ingredients include a 2 kilogram whole lamb leg, a half tablespoon of sea salt flakes, 250 milliliters of dry white wine, 1 bulb of garlic halved horizontally, and I've used 2 because mine are homegrown and a little bit small, and then 6 bay leaves. That's for the main roast. For the pesto, you'll need 37 grams of mint, and that's the equivalent of 1.5 packs if you're buying it from the supermarket, just the leaves. You'll also need 25 grams of flat leaf parsley, just the leaves, and you could use curly leaf parsley as well if you want. You'll also need 175 milliliters of extra virgin olive oil, 30 grams of blanched whole almonds. And to blanch almonds, all you do is you pop the whole almonds in boiling water for 1 minute and then take them out. You also need the juice and zest of 1 unwaxed lemon, and then you can add a half more lemon if you want. And you'll also need 20 grams of grated Parmigiano Reggiano. Making this recipe is really simple. First, you put the lamb in a roasting tin or another oven-proof dish and make sure that it fits fairly snugly, and then rub the salt all over and set it aside so that it draws the moisture out. Meanwhile, preheat the oven to 240 degrees Celsius or gas mark 9. Next, roast the lamb for 20 minutes so that the meat is slightly burnished, and then reduce the temperature to 150 degrees Celsius, gas mark 2. Remove the roasting tin from the oven and then pour the wine and 350 milliliters of water into the hot tin and add the garlic and bay leaves. Carefully tent the tray with foil and then return it to the oven for 3 hours and 30 minutes. At some point while the lamb is cooking, make the pesto in a food processor or blender. I made mine a little bit differently than the instructions in that I just put everything together in the food processor and then I blended it together, and it turned out perfectly and it was super easy. But there are more detailed instructions that you add ingredients bit by bit if you want to follow the Waitrose recipe. Now when the lamb is ready, transfer the joint to a platter and then cover with foil for 20 minutes while the rest of the meal comes together. After 20 minutes of being under that foil, the lamb should be succulent and easy to pull apart when you serve. If you would like, you can finish off the recipe by skimming the fat from the tray and making a really lovely lamb gravy, and the recipe includes instructions for that. I decided just to pull the meat apart and then sprinkle some of that gorgeous pesto all over the top. I served up the lamb on the table with the side dish, a stuffed squash with sage and tahini sauce recipe, also from Waitrose. I used homegrown butternut squash for that, sage from the garden, and a few other ingredients, and my goodness, it was incredible. A perfect pairing for that lamb. And another great pairing with that lamb was the Malbec that I chose as well. An absolutely beautiful feast and a great way to celebrate a pre-Easter celebration. Perennial and even some biennial herbs are some of the very first crops that we get in spring, and they come up enthusiastically long before any of our other seeds start to sprout. And so spring recipes using culinary herbs are really something that makes your food much more local if you're growing it homegrown or getting it from a supermarket that supports local, and also seasonal. And seasonal eating is something that you learn when you grow your own, because when something is ready to be picked, that's when you cook with it rather than just willy-nilly picking something randomly off of a shelf. Now, if you want to try those recipes that I've just made using herbs, you'll find the links for them down in the video description. They'll take you over to waitrose.com, and those recipes are ready to go and perfect for Easter gatherings and dinners. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're growing any herbs or any are coming up for you right now, let me know as a comment down below. See you next time here on Lovely Greens. Bye for now.